Hello folks, welcome to Canal Channel Jose. Today we're going to give you an idea how to replace the alternator on a 2010 to 2012 Toyota Camry 4-cylinder. So due to being so easy to replace it, we're going to actually take this one out and put it back in there, so that way we can show you that you can do this at home without taking it to shops, and that way you can save a lot of money. And when that's it, let's jump right into it. So as you're looking at your engine, right over here is the alternator. And this is for the 4-cylinder 2.5 engine. So before we start doing any work in the electrical system, we want to disconnect our battery. That way we don't cause any shorts and we can burn something. So, and we're gonna be working on this area. So before getting into this, we'll disconnect the battery, first step. And for this, we're just gonna disconnect the negative. Once we disconnect the battery, the next thing is to remove this plastic, this top piece. We don't have any clips anymore on our car because they've been broken. They're broke off due to the time. So that way we can expose a little bit more on that angle where we're going to be working on the alternator. And then with the alternator, we have to remove the belt. We got to take some tension off of the tensioner. The belt comes out of the alternator, and that way we can start working on the wiring and then the bracket. To get the tensioner to move, that's a 40 millimeter, and you put it right there on that, not that one, it's right there. So now we get our extendable ratchet with a 40 millimeter socket, and then we put it right on that, and then we pull forward like if we were tightening the bolt, and look what happens to the belt. You lose tension. The tensioner is loosening up the belt so we can take it off of that pulley. So now we pull it and we take off the belt from the pulley or the alternator. So now that you took off your belt from the pulley, you have two choices on where the tool is going to sit. You can even just let off and leave it there, or you can take it off and the tensioner is not going to go anywhere. So you can come back later on and still put it over it, and now you can do the tension, and then you can put the belt back onto the pulley of the alternator once we are done. But for right now, you have two choices: leave it there or take it off if you're going to be using that tool to take off the other bolts for the main for the alternator. So now that we have removed the belt from the alternator, what we can do is we can unplug this wire and this 10 millimeter, and then we can take off this 10 millimeter bolt because that holds a harness on this wiring into the body of the alternator. So we can remove that, and then we can start getting into the main bolt that we have to remove. 1, 2. So the reason we disconnected our battery is because if these wires have a positive and you are using your tools and you touch ground, you're going to create a short and it can burn something on your electrical system. We don't want to cause that. So to avoid that, we disconnected the battery. Now we can work with these wires, and that way we know we're safe and that we're not going to create a short. When I disconnect a wiring or something and that nut is just holding something against that, I get the nut and put it back in, or the bolt. That way I don't lose those bolts or nuts, because that's going to be harder to replace. So that's one thing I do personally to keep all the special bolts and nuts in their place without losing them. So now we just disconnected the main wire to the alternator with a nut. So now that was that one on the little post. Now we have this other one, which is that one right there. And to disconnect this guy which is sitting just like this, like that. There's this tab in the side that you're gonna have to push in the side and then pull out. You see? So it's sitting like this. You push on the driver's side and you pull out, because that's how it's secured to the alternator. And it's a 4-prong connector. So now that we disconnected this connector and the main wire, we now have to take this 10 millimeter bolt out of here because that structure is holding this wiring harness against the body of the alternator. So we have to remove that. So now that you're about to take off this bolt and that bolt down there, that one right there, which is a 14 millimeter bolts, both of them, we start with the bottom one first, and then we'll come up here and take off that one. That's a longer bolt than that one down there. So this bolt down here is gonna be tight. Be patient. And this is a 14 millimeter because they've been there for so long. So now we're gonna take it off, so it's probably gonna be just too tight. So now that we're loosening that bolt down there, and once we start loosening this bolt up here, one thing I want to say is look out that there's this AC line here for the air conditioning. You don't want to concentrate too much on that, and once it breaks loose, you're gonna break this or damage something on the AC line. So be conscious about that when you're loosening it. So keep control of your torque once you're loosening that one and that bolt, because this line can be broken up really easy, and then you can create a problem for yourself. So now that you have loosened that bolt down there, what you can do is before you try to take it all the way out, you can loosen this one out as well, and then that probably is gonna let you take the other one out completely by hand, because that one is creating the alternator to create pressure on that thread. So now if you loosen this, the alternator will have a little play, and you can actually take them out by hand. So one thing that you're gonna notice is that when you're taking this long bolt from the top out, it's gonna hit this AC line. What you can do is press down into it a little bit, so you can get the bolt to slide out and bring it out, because see how long it is. So once you guide it in, once you're putting it in, you guide it, push the AC line a little bit down, and then you can slide it all the way in when you're putting it in. Because if not, it's gonna hit here and you're gonna get scared. Don't get scared, just push it down a little bit to work that bolt in or out. So we take it out. So now we have the alternator loose in there. So what we have done is we had added some WD-40 into those joints where the two alternator meets the bracket, so that way it makes it smooth, it lubricates. And then what we can do is to move these wirings out of the way to have more clearance. We're gonna get these wires out of this clip, and then we're gonna disconnect this sensor out so we can have more clear area to bring it out straight out. So now you got your new alternator, so you just start feeding it in there. Make sure you got it the right way. These two brackets, there's the engine block on the top, and this one goes towards the bottom. So you grab it, you slide it back in there, pull your wiring out of the way, and then your belt, make sure it's not in there, and then you just start setting that part over there first, and then we'll worry about the bottom bolt. So now we line up that bolt, and then we go over there. Now we can put the bottom bolt right here. So now that we have tightened that long bolt up there, the bottom one here, we can put our wiring back on, and then we'll put the belt on at the end. So now we have connected our connectors. Now we have to put this bracket here into the alternator. So we have put everything back together. We tighten all the bolts. We just gotta put the belt back on. So now we just gotta pull on our tensioner towards the front so we can put the belt over this pulley. So now that we have done that, and make sure that the belt is right on the grooves, and then once you got everything back together, let's connect the battery back up. So now we have replaced the alternator. Well, in our case, we put the old one back in. So now we'll connect the battery. So let's start our engine and see how it reacts. So now there's the alternator working as it should. So now we have replaced the alternator, or in our case, we just took it out and put it in to show you how of an easy job it can be. So everything looks normal and our engine is running just like it should. So we're done with this alternator replacement on a Toyota Camry. Well, folks, hopefully this video was useful and helpful on how you can do this replacement of your alternator on a 2010 to 2012 Toyota Camry. The 2007 to 2009 are not compatible, so only buy the 2010 to 2012, which are only compatible in those 3 years. So on our case, also the 4-cylinder and the 6-cylinder change, so make sure you get the 4-cylinder. And this was specifically for a 4-cylinder engine, so we show you how we took it out and we put it back in, just to give you an idea how easy it is to replace your own alternator. That way you can save money on the labor. So with that said, folks, for our friends who are watching our video, haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. If you like our video, give us thumbs up, share it, and we'll see you soon with more videos here en el canal El Chano Jose.